You might want to tell Noelle a little bit about your work, and then from there converse.
And thank you, Elizabeth, for sending me through your website. I had a good look at your work as well. It looks fascinating, and obviously the fact that you're in education, we have a lot in common, which I'm curious about as well. So lovely to hear from you, and lovely to see your work, and a great opportunity, Susan. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I was hoping that I would be out, you see, in Oklahoma. But I think now that, and it will get there someday, hopefully, it probably might now be 2021, but at least now that we've met, it means that we can build on that, which is great, you know.
This is, you know, Susan has done an amazing thing with bringing all these people together, and I'm delighted with it. It's kind of, you know, expanding our community here in a way that, you know, we're kind of forced into it, but it's this really lovely way to do it.
Yes.
I'm obvious, but
yes.
do you see me vertical or horizontal?
I see you. I see you in a portrait, but in a picture that is a landscape.
Okay, I actually, my husband took it away. I have a gimbal that I'm going to put the phone on, and that will allow me to give you a smoother look when I turn the camera around. So if you don't mind, just a few seconds while I put it on. You're going to be looking at the ceiling, okay?
Yeah.
So what... Are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah. See you now.
What time is it there?
It is just quarter past 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, well, that's good. I was worried that this was going to be too much of a early morning. I'm not really clear on.
I think we are 6 hours behind you.
Oh.
6 hours in front of you. I think that's it.
All right. Okay.
So we just see your picture now, Susan, your portrait.
I am muted, and I don't know what happened.
If you show the video, then maybe. If I think that's.
How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Great.
All righty. Now you've done this. You're kind of to the end of visiting all of us. So
that's great. It's brilliant.
Would you like to step me through how you want me to do this?
Well, the way we've done before, Elizabeth, is that what I've done is I've read a little bit about most of the artists prior to meeting you virtually, and then really what this is an opportunity for me to see the sort of work that you do. So for you to tell me a little bit about your work and your practice. So I understand that are you full-time lecturing at the university?
I'm a full-time professor. I've been there about 16, 17 years now. My background was originally printmaking when I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and then I thought I'd go into creative writing for about 1.5 years, and realized all my writing was very, very much description of visuals. So I decided that I wanted to go back into fine art, and I went to Arizona State University, and my background in that was printmaking. I mean, fiber arts.
Yes.
So the pieces that I have to show you and the stuff that you've seen on the website have come about since the last 10 years, where I've moved my way into mixed media.
Yes.
Small mixed media sculptures,
Mhm.
I'm going to show you some mixed media that I've been doing where it is high relief on wood panels on the wall,
Yeah.
and some large pieces that I've built underlying textures. I got very much into mixed media paintings that were just textured. They're in process. And little things that I do with drawings and paintings when some of the pieces that I'm working with are really, really time consuming and detail orientated and take a while, I kind of move to the evening, spending a couple of evenings on a drawing. So it's
Yeah.
an immediate type of investigation and thought process as opposed to the longer ones.
Yes.
But
Great. Great.
you know, my work revolves around a lot of biological visuals, and
Yes.
that is something that I have been interested in a while.
Mhm.
That it also coincides or is a combination of, I would put it as organic forms and process, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
The process really delves into material qualities and capabilities, found objects, synthetic objects, hobby materials, and I'm very interested in the working with them. On the other hand, I come from a background of science, and I'm very interested in analysis and observation. So
Mhm.
those two came together in a really unique way. The studio sort of became my laboratory, the looking at a variety of materials in front of me. I was looking a lot not only at the visual forms, textures, and colors, but also at, you know, the materials' inherent qualities, capabilities, and experimentation kind of aligned itself with, you know, creating a hypothesis in science and, you know,
Mhm.
the unknown outcome and then the
Yeah.
realization of it. Um, and then when I talk about my work to people, it becomes this, um, the analysis comes in where I sit and I look at the piece afterwards and I'm thinking about, you know, I begin to think about the past process of making it, and that becomes part of the concept as well, because I think that it's very interesting in our own lives, in nature, in art, where I teach, in science. We're very interested in identifying things
Yes.
and defining them and categorizing them. So I kind of started paralleling the organic quality of my work with ideas of taxonomy, morphology, and those type of concepts.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting when you're talking, Elizabeth, the curriculum in Northern Ireland, the island of Ireland is divided politically, but we're still all one island. So the education system is similar but varied. So my background, I trained to be an art and design teacher, so there would have been the art and the design element of it as well. And my focus at college would have been on painting and ceramics. That, you know, and then going into the teaching profession, as you know, you have to be able to be a jack of all trades. So you have to, you
Yeah.
know, develop your skills, whether it's textiles or ceramics or three-dimensional thinking or mixed media. So our curriculum here in Northern Ireland in the secondary school, and that's from 11 years of age up to 16, 17, 18 years of age. The emphasis is on the first 3 years is a foundation year of working in two-dimensional work, three-dimensional work, a whole range of media, materials and processes, and that whole idea of analysis and independent learning, and then looking at the importance of contextual studies, you know, art history and appreciation as well as that. And then at the end of that, the 3 years, students have a choice if they want to study art and design further. So it's like a an O level or a GCSE. So that's from 14 to 16 years of age, and they have to produce a series of pieces of coursework, and they also have to do a final exam on a theme that could be anything from any topic or whatever. And the idea being that they have to go from conception to realization. They must show analytical studies. They have to look at the depth of how their studies have evolved, and how then they've realized them, and what media or materials or processes that they have, and they have to document that. And then after those then that decide to take it further from the ages of 16 to 18, that would be the equivalent of A level here. And then after that, go on to university or apply to college. So, and then the nature of the course there could be, they could apply to do a foundation year at college, which means that they get an opportunity to expand their repertoire of skills and access to media and materials, and then go into a focused year, whether it's printmaking, textiles, graphic design, or fine art. And on a number of rare occasions, you might have students who are accepted straight in to do the degree course without having to go through the foundation year. But the foundation year actually is a very good thing, and I actually think for teachers and for educators and artists, it's something that really should be compulsory every couple of years. Maybe every 5 to 10 years. I think it's Australia. Yeah. I think it's Australia that their practice is that teachers after 8 or 9 years have a year out to invest in their own practice, which is great. So my job, I trained to be an art design teacher, and I taught in schools, and I taught in a male prison, and I taught in university again for shorter periods of time. But and then I joined the advisory service, which is where you work with educators and artists and arts organisations to promote professional development of artists, professional development of art educators, and work then with arts organisations to collaborate, whether it's to showcase the work, whether it's to partner in a particular project, and this is across all art forms. So one of the projects we did was it was an initiative called Creative Youth Partnerships. So it was working with young people from the ages of early years, right up to 25, and they could be children in care, children in university, children hard to reach, children terminally ill, children in hospital, as well as those in the formal education system. So we would work with a range of artists across different art forms and the local authorities or local government bodies. So it really was celebrating the creativity in the widest sense, but it also was building and nurturing partnerships at local level. So you had communities, and then we had artists. We worked with about 120 artists. So you know this yourself, that not every artist is a good facilitator. Not everybody has the skills to get their message across to a class or to students. They may have the drawing skills of Leonardo da Vinci, but they may not be able to actually get that across. So we had to work then with the artist communication skills. Some artists don't want to share their thinking process, nor do they feel they have to. So there's that element of risk and balance and trust to try and get the thing all together. So I would have chaired that for about 5 years. It was right across Northern Ireland, and it was an initiative that we borrowed from England, Scotland, and Wales. So the intention there was to put creativity at the heart of the curriculum, so that educators and principals would recognise that we need to be creative and resourceful. The
importance of it.
It's not just about being arty-farty and being good with your hands. There was an intellectual and an analytical and inquiring mind. So the alliance with the sciences that you talk about, I can get that. So then my work, I took early retirement there 2 years ago, and I also would be involved in having my own exhibitions every couple of years, and I would be involved in group shows, but most of my energy and time has been met and supporting other artists. And then I was seconded for 4 years to help with the bid for the first ever UK City of Culture in Derry, Londonderry, and so it was helping to write the bid, to win the award, and to try and get the whole community, educators, health professionals, local government behind the idea that creativity was really, really important for communities to survive and thrive. So that was I love that. And then part of that, when we won the bid, which we were totally shocked, then it meant then we had that status and we had to work hard at making sure the city's public realm and all that was transformed. But one of the things that was asked to do as well was to look at how the role of the artist and the educator and the craftsperson was not really being fully celebrated. So I would have worked with a whole range of artists. And we went to Milwaukee to the Irish Fest and had a whole big showcase there with textile artists and ceramicists and spoken word artists as well as creative writers. And then another initiative I was involved in was the Governor's School of Art in Lexington in Kentucky in the University of Transylvania. And it was where educators in Ireland worked with educators in America. And it was the idea of encouraging children who wouldn't normally get the financial support from their parents to go to summer schools or to study, arts courses. So it was really perceived as something that was initially for the underprivileged, but talented young people. So we did that in Ireland, and we did that in partnership with Lexington in Kentucky. And then was over there as like an artist in residence for a while. And then as part of the City of Culture context, I was invited to run a gallery in a 3-story house. And the lady that I would have been working with, who's an absolute brilliant mentor as well, not unlike Susan, that's how I would have met Susan. I met Susan in May last year. So every week for the last, since May, we've been in contact maybe once and twice a week, and so I was really intrigued by the title of her gallery, but also the work that she was doing. And the gallery that I was running was, as I said, a gallery in a 3-story house, and it was really to promote the work of local emerging artists, as well as support and profile interactions with internationally renowned artists. And it was called the London Street Gallery. So we broke all the rules. I mean, it was a 3-story house with magnolia walls, a staircase. We had 10,477 visitors through the doors in 9.5 months.
Wow.
We exhibited 1,947 artists, I think it was, and 500 of them were children and young people. And then we had everybody from the presidents to the mayors to the launches of the exhibition. We had singer-songwriters launch their albums. We had poets launch their poetry. It was one of the happiest, most fulfilling times I felt, even though we were running the gallery on a tiny budget. But what we had the space gifted to us rent-free, because it was going to be changed into a hotel eventually at the end of the year. So we just ran with what we could, But looking back now, we had 14 exhibitions in 9.5 months, which was madness. Absolutely madness.
That is.
But I have the document. I have sent it to Susan, and I can send it to you as well. But what came out of it was the partnership working, and the potential of when you bring artists together or creatives together, you can create something really quite magical, because it's the powers of the it's the power of the partnership and the cross-fertilization of ideas. You would know this from your work in a university, and the nurturing, the support, even these sort of conversations, as well across the continents, can be a really nurturing thing to do at a time when people's spirit can be quite low, And yet one of the things that artists are not afraid of is isolation, because they need that to thrive, But they also need an ecosystem and an infrastructure to survive. So one of the things that we were trying to do here, and I was trying to do with the gallery, was this idea of not just merely survive, but to thrive, to build the capacity as artists, as creatives, to get connected, so they're not completely isolated, and to get into the know as to who's out there that can help them. Because if you're relying on funding from, say, our Arts Council, I used to sit on the board of our Arts Council for 8 years, so I sat on a number of arts and cultural organisations, but you can't rely on one source, and you've got to be proactive, but you've also got to be quite resilient, and these are things that you already know, So, and with the universities as well, I was up just before the lockdown. I was saying this to Susan, I was invited up to help a colleague interview 40 students who were art graduates who were applying to teach. You know, they wanted to apply to do their PGCE, their postgraduate certificate in education, and there were 40 applicants and only 10 places in the university. So it was a very intense series of interviews, and the caliber of students were absolutely brilliant. But the students that came from, I felt, from the textile background, and the sort of things that you were talking about, were much more prepared for that multifaceted, multimedia approach to teaching, experimentation, and I felt building confidence with, you know, younger children as well, you know.
Yes. You know, it was interesting you're talking about the types of programs that you have. You also said as far as in education, as far as UK and yourself. I had done some research into some curriculum that a lady she did this wonderful thing with this website in Australia, and it was for you call it 4A. I think you call it 4A. I'm not sure, but she created this website for people who students who were getting ready to do this project and pass with all of these pretty high standard objectives and requirements. And I looked at that to actually fashion a little bit of it in a course that I developed that is our capstone for our undergraduate courses, you know, the core courses. So I teach a capstone that is a course that pulls together the abilities of the students who've gone through their foundations, you know, the introduction to materials and the techniques and the philosophies. And we have in this course, it's not totally unique, but actually I was thinking of trying to present it as a paper at a conference, that it's really a synthesis of, you know, their capabilities. You know, it talks about their capabilities. But also it is a course where they're really pushed to experiment, and they have to identify, again, back to the observation, self-observation. They have to identify what ideas and concepts that they are most interested in to create their own conceptual prompt or theme prompt. And that's something that I've found really, really interesting to teach. But
okay, that's well, what I was going to say, I can send you things and share with you some links that might be of benefit, but I'm curious now to see your work as well, Elizabeth, because I was intrigued. I'm looking up behind you as well, the scale of some of the pieces. Would you show us some of your work? And
I will. I'm going to flip my screen here. Okay, studio. I'm going to do a slow pan of everything that's set up, and then you can tell me what area you would like to go into. These are these right down here are some of the sculpture pieces you've probably seen online. And this is a body of that's all right. This is a body of work that I am exploring, taking the technique of the sculpture and putting it into high relief on a panel. And then I'm gonna pan over these. Can you hear me?
Oh God, yes, I can. I'm just responding to somebody who's rung me and I'm saying I can't talk, so I'm just sending a message.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
Yes. They look really organic. They look almost like topographical, you know, almost like aerial views of landscapes and
Well, in the these are all in process right now. Maybe you can see the scale with the ceiling and the wall.
Yes.
And I usually build in layers, and I quite often am experimenting, kind of an alchemy type thing. And I'll come in so you can see some of the detail.
They almost look like aerial photographs, Elizabeth. They look
I
like
know.
almost, climatology, and they're quite ethereal. Are they paint, or are they textured in some way?
They are textured. So like on this one right here, a lot of the process is a medium underneath that has paint or dye, and then has tissue paper pushed over the top of it, and then a layer of modeling paste. This one has lacquer. This one I'm building up elements in. This one had multiple, I'll pull it out so you can see the whole thing.
Your screen is frozen, Elizabeth. I just wonder.
Okay.
You see it now. Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Is it still frozen?
No, I can see the full picture, the full painting.
Okay. So these areas right in here, if you look at these areas, they were multiple layers that I was just really disappointed with what was going on with building materials and dye that I had put layers and layers on. So I just started sanding them, and then you can see where I start building up other areas. So some of that process you can see in the initial parts of these smaller pieces, where I do a lot of texture and layering, and kind of what if I put these things together.
Yeah.
And then they sort of develop into these ones right now are beginning to develop. These are very small. I'll put my hand up so you can see the size. And
I love those.
So those three were finished. This one is going to have some elements where I make a transition between the protruding form and the base that it's sitting on. This one you can see is in progress. Some of this was all flat with only this part and this part.
And you're frozen on the blue one at the minute. Oh yeah, see, they look ceramic. Are they happy mash?
This part?
This
part is caulking, silicone caulking.
Okay.
This part is, you can see up here, is expandable metal mesh, and then covered with plaster.
Yes.
This part, I believe, is puff paint that people use within, hobbies, crackle. And I use a lot of dyes. I've been exploring on this piece. I've been exploring needle felting. This is all kind of it's not
your screen is frozen again. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You see the top right hand one with the red one on in the corner. Yeah, that's interesting. That's it almost looks figurative.
Yeah. The base, I just wrapped it up so I could show you the form. And it kind of gave me an idea of how I might want to build up the base and attach it.
Yes.
And you can see I also work with building material, because this is an insulation that puffs up and you use in houses.
Yes.
And then, again,
the blue. Those little ones. They look ceramic, and the blue ones, the blue square. The one below that. Yeah, it's almost it's cellular. And it almost looks ceramic. My background would be in ceramic and painting, and they almost look. Are they quite light? Is that a canvas?
This is actually this is a Tyvek material that if you heat it, it puckers, like you can see there.
Yeah.
And then I use fiber active dyes and inks, various types of inks. And so, no, they're extremely light.
They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. It's funny because when I look at the when I look at them there, and I think of the interplay of light as well, you know, and these now the pieces that are on the table, are they yours, or are they your own creations as well?
Yes.
Oh,
On the website, they're under the category of cryptic species.
oh, right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and then they're also displayed in where I did an installation called Morphology. So
oh, yes, I've seen that. Yes.
yeah, so these again are all different mediums. I'll scan, and then you can tell me which ones you want to look at more specifically.
Yes, the one to the left, which is white, is quite spindly.
This one?
Yeah, yes.
That's styrofoam and half styrofoam balls.
Yes.
Underneath is that wire that you sand with in it's a type of wire, and it's rusting. Yeah. It's got Japanese rice paper over the top. This
are the little spindles, are they nails? What are they?
No, actually, that is baling wire. And then this is a material that I put on top. I wrapped small wire around it, and then put a material that you use for repairing, and it's kind of like a liquid metal that hardens.
Yes. Yeah. And then the one in the middle, the yellow one, it looks almost like paper. It looks like so fine.
It is paper. It is a heavy stock paper that I dyed with fiber active dyes, and I glued it all together, and then I burnt it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I can see that. Do you know what it reminds me of as well? You know, the Christmas decorations that you used to get. I'm much older than you now, Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the lampshades.
I remember them.
You know, the sort of lampshades you would get, and also they remind me of books, old books. You know, if you had a book that was completely turned back on itself. You know, you know, this idea of you know, that is completely turned.
Yeah.
You know, turned back on itself. Now that's beautiful. What's that now?
Now, so just real quick, I'll tell you, sometimes these pieces tend to grow simultaneously, because I'll have them on the table. I'll have about 4 or 5 things going. And this part initially was me working with some tape, like a masking tape, and I just kind of rolled it in my fingers, and I thought, oh, what an interesting shape. I'll roll another one. And pretty soon I had stuck, because the sticky side was out. So I'd stuck them all together. And then I set it on my table in the studio, and it sat there for about a year, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and I wasn't going to push it. And then I don't know if you can see, but these are a craft pipe cleaner. Yes. And I thought, oh, wow, those would fit really nicely in the top of that. But the ends needed something. So I dipped them several times in a acrylic medium, painted them with acrylic, and then spray painted them. And it's one of my favorite pieces. You can see kind of how I build some of these. So this would be a wire armature.
And is that heavy to lift? I mean, they look quite.
No, this is actually quite light. This is actually quite light. This piece right here, my husband was doing some electrical work, and this was electrical wire where you have the multiple wires inside a plastic coating. And so I took all of those and very carefully covered them with a paper. I made a companion to it. Oh,
they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous.
And And so something very similar that I'm working on right now is this guy. And so these will fold in and have subsequent layers of tissue paper that wrap them. And then we'll have more dye. This one's my favorite.
That's beautiful. Can you lift that up, Elizabeth? Oh, that's gorgeous.
That's the back side. And then these would be the details on the edges. And then the interior. And you can see how that works.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Because it looks equally as effective the back side as it does on the front side. I mean, they almost look as if they should be floating in water. You know, they look as if they're ethereal, you know, of another world. You know.
Yeah, a lot of them. I like to make them complete. You know, if you turn them upside down, for instance, with this one, which is rolled paper. But it's just as interesting to me to see that backside.
Yes, they're gorgeous.
As
absolutely gorgeous.
To this. And then,
Elizabeth, do you? And I know I've had just a quick look on your website, but because of the nature of the pieces, and I mean to be able to see the quality even now as we visit your gallery or your studio, do you get these all professionally photographed, or do you photograph them yourself?
I've done a combination of it, and I do have the equipment, but you know, time is a commodity. So I started having some other people take images. When it comes to my two-dimensional work, I usually scan them, and I just wanted to show you really quick. I did a little bit of a curation with these. There's a lot of other types of drawings and paintings I do, but I thought these worked well with the idea of the biological.
And are these your original drawings and ink drawings?
Yes.
They're beautiful. Beautiful.
So there's a whole series here of these ones, and then these little gold guys. I'll get the shadow out of the way there for you.
Yes, beautiful. They're almost ornamental. You know, they're little. When I see them in that scale, you could imagine them actually created almost like ornamental pieces to wear.
Yes.
You know, or whether for your head. We were talking to Lawrence yesterday, and you know, this idea of the preciousness of found things, and even the title of the gallery. You know, I mean, this what you've got there is just stunning. You know, and I'm curious to know as well, Elizabeth, see when you exhibit these pieces, because they, as you say, they're equally as beautiful from underneath as they are from the top. Do you consider hanging any of them so you can walk around them and look up to them, or you know, placing mirrors underneath them, or have you thought of that at all?
Actually, the first time that I exhibited the sculptures, they were all on single skinny pedestals, and it was a little bit. I like tight. I like putting them really tight. So I had an interesting conversation. I don't know if you met Laura Warner.
Yes.
Yeah, and her and Mark Barker and I went out to lunch. They had seen the tables with all the sculptures in the black sand, and they both told me that, you know, I had placed them too close together. And I said, well, that was the intention, because I didn't want a person to be able to see them separately. I really wanted to force them to be seen, you know, in relationship to each other. So I've had the opportunity to show them in those two contexts, but people want to touch them. But you're right. A lot of the times it's very interesting on the backside. The mirror would be really interesting. One of the things that I'm planning on doing for my website is to do videos very similar to what I'm doing with you now. So that the people can see, you know, them handheld, their proportional relation to a hand, and be able to zoom in turn it around. I think that would be a nice additional aspect to, building up that,
Yes.
that presentation on the website.
Uh-huh. It's just when I see them as well, I can visualize them almost suspended on, like, cat books, almost like clear, so they look as if they're suspended like a family, like a cluster, but that you can walk under them and look up and see them as well. And also too, because of the nature of the textures, that depending on the light source, that the textures would be really, really very powerful, and also the shadows that they cast, as well. Very, very, very powerful, very, very powerful. Do you show your students these when you're teaching?
I'm gonna switch real quick. Hi.
They're beautiful, absolutely beautiful, Elizabeth.
I have taught when I've had the time and in my schedule. I've taught a mixed media 1 and a mixed media 2. Yes. Where I will talk about these. I'll show some techniques, both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. I don't know if you saw the I believe I call them samples, the grid of textures.
I did. I saw those. Yeah.
Yeah. So I teach 2-dimensional, then wall relief, then 3-dimensional. Those classes only really make when I'm able to teach them when I have enough students sign up for them. Yeah. But I have I tend to work with a lot of things going at one time. Yes. And they build on each other, sort of the life and progress of the object really, in my mind, mirrors the life and progress of an organic object. Yes. Yes. And then, I have some thoughts. I'm going to turn it around again. Yeah. I'm thinking I bought many large sheets of watercolor paper, and I'm thinking I have many small, here, hold on. I'll have sheets of paper where I just sit and I play with little objects or drawings. Yes. And my concept is that I'm going to be cutting groupings or singular ones out and creating a type of diagram with all of these small objects, like you might see in a botanical illustration or that type of thing. I haven't quite figured out where I'm going with these guys, but they're fun.
Do you know the lovely thing about it as well too is that you actually would think there are several different artists working in the one place, and it interests me when you said that you work on a few things at a different time, and I think that's part of an artist's mindset, because you've got beautiful detail in the drawings, really, really tight drawings, and then your paintings are really kind of very free and experimental. And then what you've combined then in the 3-dimensional sculptures are your attention to detail combined with the experimentation of materials and colors.
They're very fun when and I truly mean that. When I'm out of school, which is when I spend most of my time creating these type of pieces, this type of work is usually what I'm doing while I'm in school. These really are quite fun, because I kind of look at something and I go, that would be fascinating to do. And I do like detail, and I do like very much having it as a completed object. There really isn't a bottom that's not finished that you can't see. Just really quick, I have a tabletop here, and my husband and I are renovating our studio spaces, and so I was going to show you my collection of things at the moment that I'm working with. So I'll take a silk flower from a craft store, take it completely apart. I'll use this part. And then I'll have these parts. And, you know, I had these little ones left over, and I thought, what if I, you know, rub some of it off? And I don't know if you can see that.
I can
Rub
only
some of
see
it off.
there's a frozen bit. Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So then I would rub some of it off and paint it black. And in a way, you know, that I think it's really interesting, and it ties back into my idea of the indefinable, the elusiveness of recognizing the, you know, I know the materials, but I don't know the materials. It looks like, you know, it looks like a sea urchin, but those are toothpicks.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
you know, I really enjoyed that part. And when I've had a exhibition and I'm there listening or talking to people, that's mostly their reaction without getting into the conceptual, you know, end of it. Is how did you make it? What is that made from? It makes me think of those type, you know, this type of plant or object.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's something too about an imagination. You know the way I keep forgetting, Susan. There was a name that Mark used at the very beginning of last week, and it begins with P, and it's when you see things in images or even human forms in things like water or fire or clouds. You know the way you can see the potential. You can look at a piece of foam, expanded foam, or the root of a plant, and you can see a complete, you know, family almost. But it's that interplay between your imagination, the skillful kind of manipulation of materials and media, and then the decoration, you know.
You know, quite often I do not start with a preconceived notion of making, you know, mimaic work that would be recognized as a, you know, a seed pod or anemone or aloe vera plant. I'm actually looking at the smaller shapes. Let me show you again, and their capabilities. So if you look at this material here, again, it's Tyvek, and it's been ironed, and that became, I thought, well, what would happen if I rolled them up and glued them together, and I create multiples. And, you know, the way it dried, I thought, oh, it'd be very interesting to have a lighter edge. And then I thought, well, that would be interesting to put them in these type of groupings, cut these angles. So, and then in the end, again, it's a stepping back, it's an analysis of it. And at that point, I recognize, yeah, it is very organic, but I didn't have the notion of creating fungi or, you know, it was
beautiful.
Yeah.
It kind of evolved. I can see completely where you're coming from, because you're actually evolving. You're creating a relationship with the found material, and then that's nearly dictating a path that you hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Honestly, the diversity of your work is just really, really lovely to see, Elizabeth. You know, and the intensity of the experimentation as well. You know, you're lucky to keep yourself sane in the middle of the teaching and all the rest. Are you still supporting your students then as well online?
Oh, it was like going from 0 to 60. We had 1 week to transfer all of our courses online, and I had really I had not taught anything online. So it was a learning curve for me to create to learn these programs, you know, to recreate assignments, to figure out how would I have a critique. I'm trying it 2 different ways. And then to stay in contact with students who are for whatever reason, whether it's a personal reason for work or for family, or the ability to connect to the internet, what supplies they have at home, and getting them, the impetus to get to the classroom is stronger than to log on to your computer.
Yes.
So this has been really challenging. At the same time, it is very interesting to me because I would like to start making videos of myself working and talking about, the work and the process. I don't know where that might lead to, but this is certainly a bit of an introduction to it.
Well, it's funny, Elizabeth, because two days ago I came across this thing. You get all these emails, and it was how to do your own podcast. So it was from somebody in Australia, and I thought, oh, God, that's because of the connections with Elizabeth or with Susan and doing all of this. I thought that could be a really good idea. So I signed up for it, but it was going to be at 10 o'clock last night, right? And I was saying to Susan, we sadly lost a friend and colleague because of the virus, and so I was helping her daughter with the piece for the local paper. So that just took over the whole weekend at Easter, because everything had shut down. Everybody was away. Most of the people had retired, and this was a friend that worked, in our education authority for about 20 years. And I had this overwhelming sense of sadness, thinking that if she died in this town and her family weren't able to come, and if the one thing I could help would be gather all this sort of testimonials and the little quirky stories and photographs, that would be useful. So I did that, but it has taken a lot of energy. And so then when it came to do the podcast last night, I just said, look, I'm sorry, I really can't face, I didn't go into why I couldn't face it. I just said, look, there's been a bereavement. But and then she came back and she said, but Noelle, there'll always be an excuse. Why put this off? You'll always be worried about not having enough time. You'll always be worried about not being good enough, and all the rest. And it dawned on me when we were having this conversation, and Susan and I were chatting. Mark was the first person that gave us the studio tour, and then we had, I think we seen Mark and Nathan and Brian and Lawrence and Paul. And like with Susan, we started initially just with the WhatsApp tour, with the phone. And I'm this is the irony of the whole thing, because I'm quite a bit of a technophobe. But what I'm doing now is I'm connecting all of these friends through Zoom, because Susan had said, well, we'll have a Zoom call. I hadn't, up until 2.5 weeks ago, I had never been on a Zoom call. I'm on about 2 or 3 every day, right? So it can be quite exhausting. But what has struck me is the variety of the presentation style that people use. And you would know this yourself within the field of education, and Susan, you're well used to this, that there's all of these tips about how you set up, and where you are, and whether you get dressed or brush your hair or all these things. That's the only reason I'm putting on makeup and putting on clothes, because up until now you're just in kind of casual wear and nobody's going to see you. But one of the things that I was saying I was sharing with the others is that in my house, I'm at the kitchen table now. I have some of my work on the walls.
Yeah, I see.
And I bring you around now. This is a piece here that is I did this. You can see it there.
Yes, that's lovely. The turquoise and
part of the whole series of installations.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
They were like inverted fishtails. As part of a birthday series. So this is my Christmas. This is my Christmas tree, because I'm Noelle and Christmas all year round.
That's lovely.
then I have, this is what was my utility room. So that's kind of a place where
Yeah.
You suggested that what I should do is have it as a space to exhibit some of my work. So when people want to come and see their buying work, they can do it in a private capacity. But this is kind of where I'm at.
Right. Well, you know, Noelle, I have I'm going to try. I have so many things going on with that damn computer, and I'm so tired of sitting in front of it. But I saw this article. I'm going to see if I can find it and send it to you. This couple in New York turned their extra bedroom, which was very small in a very small apartment, into a gallery. And it was not simple. Well, she had some connections, but it wasn't simply, you know, unknown artists. She was very connected to well-known artists, and they were these she had a term, a name for it, but for about 3 years she had hundreds and hundreds of people coming to their apartment, coming to just see this one very small room as an exhibition space. And I thought, you know, that's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine, he's an art teacher as well, and he actually had a gallery at his house, and he called it the Petite Gallery. And so he asked me to open the exhibition. I would open lots of different exhibitions and do talks for people, but it was so funny. It was absolutely hilarious because we had to do the speech 4 times because it was a queue of people trying to get into it, because it was just the most gorgeous experience. You know, it was so tiny. And like that, I would be connected to lots of artists who are really, really well known, as well as lots of emerging artists. And I have a particular interest as well in supporting and mentoring artists. I think that's the teacher in us that we don't want to, you want to encourage as well. So the sort of work that my own background would be in painting and ceramics, and a lot of the work would have been quite figurative, and then it went into more abstract. And this is kind of more recent work.
And what type of material is that made out of?
That is the ground is canvas, and then I use handmade paper.
We can't hear you.
It's canvas and handmade paper.
Oh, okay.
And then it's acrylic and high gloss varnish as well.
You know, I just started trying to work with high gloss out of a accident.
Yes.
I'm much more comfortable, and aesthetically I like it much more with a matte surface, but I had an accident where I had 2 inks that didn't match, and I couldn't find the old one. So so I just simply painted everything and varnished it, and it all worked.
Yes, and the thing about it as well is that sometimes the happy accidents can be really, really interesting, because I would have used yacht varnish, because my background would be ceramics and paints. That the idea of the textures are very important to me. So then if I want to make something out of paper or fine materials, if I put a layer of yacht varnish over the top, it almost gives it a rigidity. So these little pieces here.
Oh, that's lovely.
No.
I like, you know, I very much like when an artist will take something that is 2-dimensional, and it does have a surface, but in the way it is displayed, we think about it as an object as well. So in our minds, we're simultaneously moving back and forth between, this is flat, it has a 2-dimensional shape, it has edges, but it's also an object, you know.
Absolutely, and depending on, I mean, those pieces that I made that which were quite funny. A friend of mine had asked me would I design these wedding invitations for, and they were based on the beach. So there was the idea of the sand and the sea, and then I had this idea of 2 little cross stitches that were representing 2 kisses. That was the sand and the sea. But it was funny because I probably made this at the most saddest time of my life, and I was using things that were thrown away and discarded. But I bet it was like Humpty Dumpty, you're putting yourself back together again. So the very things that were thrown away became almost like a symbol of, you can make things very precious. Then, the progression then into the more abstract work, and then kind of pieces that I'm working on at the minute. Of the show, and this is a piece. You can see some figurative aspect coming through.
Yes.
And you know, there's kind of a lot of symbolism, but color is very, very important. And then sometimes I get bored or fed up, or I overwork the piece, and then it suddenly becomes like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and Susan and I talked about this, there's a series of exhibitions I would be involved in, and a little gallery in Sligo in the south of Ireland, and these are the living catalogue. There's an online catalogue as well, and so there's an open call for, well, there are invited artists, and it might be something, Susan, because I just love the title of obviously, you know, the gallery, but I love the preciousness of this size as well, and whether these exhibitions are online exhibitions as well. But the work then also is the call. They invite a number of artists, female artists, and the work has to be 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, which is this, right? And but not framed, okay? Right. And all of the work is hung alphabetically, right beside each other. You know, so there's no
butted up,
and it's not even that they're connected in any way. They're all purely alphabetical. So it's like a grid of paintings, but because they're all the same size and evolve in the same title, but they could look totally different. But this will give you an idea of one that I was involved in last year, and I mean you can see from these. I mean, they're totally different. The artist's work is totally different.
You know, that reminds me of the concept of the exquisite corpse, where you have, you know, various elements being worked on by different people, and you bring them together. Of course, that, you know, it can take, you know, an animal or a human form, but the grid and the geometry of, you know, the similar size canvas and maybe similar mediums, creating this entire image. You know, I really love multiple work. I have a lot of older work where I used a lot of grids and multiples, and yeah, I just find it fascinating. They become units. One of the parts of my background is in working with pattern, and I became very interested in the creation of pattern with the 17 different methods of, you know, combining the units, and also that the unit, which could be a square or an octagon, where the unit would be like, you know, an individual, and what is inside that unit is unique to that individual, yet maybe shared to another unit with another individual, and then they're joining points of joining, and also it's quite fascinating to go into another type of pattern, where, oh wow, what's the name of it? It's been too long ago. Aperiodic patterning. So that actually is, I know you've seen a number of the pieces that I have with Susan right now, and it harkens back to the idea of pattern. Obviously, I'm using a shape that's well known and is irregular. But in regards to that, I'm very interested in the pattern where, you know, you have the entire shape and it is repeated where it's touching, but what happens when, you know, the shape starts to overlap or you know, almost disappear, and then you're looking, the negative space becomes the important part of it.
Elizabeth, sorry, we're looking at the side of your studio as if it's on its Oh, I'm there. Oh, your paintings now, yes.
Yeah, I was holding it up.
Oh, yeah, yes.
So,
Oh, yes.
those are the two that are some of the ones. These were some experimentations I was going to, talk with Susan about. But these two, and like you said, I do work in a variety of things, but there is some thread. These are going to have palm leaves going through them, probably building more texture off of them. So that's those are kind of, they're kind of like the small drawings. They're
Do you know what's lovely, Elizabeth? I used to do paintings and ceramics to match. So if someone wanted to buy a piece of work, they would have a wall piece, and then they would have a complementary piece of sculpture or three-dimensional work in ceramic to go with it. And there's something, when you say there, like, you really, really are very prolific in terms of what you're doing, and the scale of that, the scale and the detail in which you work, but also the media that you work across as well. And the way sometimes you have people who buy work just simply because they like it. They may not have a background in it, but there is an emotional response to what they see, and they really, really like it. Some people buy stuff because they like the frames. Some people buy a piece because they have a hole in the wall or space in the wall, they want to put something up. But you have a lovely organic, quality about all of the work that you've done, whether it's your paintings or your sculptures or your relief pieces as well, And your work is very, very exciting. It's and I can see the scientific and the analytical and that creative thread as well. And you see, some people are shocked at that partnership, but actually the creative subjects have that, that scientific, they have that experimentation, they have that discipline that is required. Not everybody gets it, and that's the challenge, I suppose, for students to try and see that they need to be disciplined in order to create, in order to experiment, but also to be free enough to let themselves go in a direction that they don't need to know where they're going to come. The journey is going to be completed yet, because it's a journey that never stops.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I find myself thinking about it when I'm in a critique with a student, and I'm not one of those type of people that gives a textbook and gives a vocabulary list. And I'm very much, you get immersed. You put the pieces up on the wall. We start talking about them. I use terminology, but my critiques kind of follow that idea of analysis, where I introduce it without really defining it. I say, well, what are we, let's describe what we're looking at. And, they might say, oh, well, it's very, soft. And I'm like, that's an interpretation. Can we come back to what is actually, on the two-dimensional picture plane here? Let's look at lines, and are they jagged, and are they smooth, and how far apart are they? And so the idea of analyzing and then moving into interpretation, or towards the end of the semester, I start talking about, well, give me your interpretation, and then give me the supporting facts of what is happening in the picture plane with the elements and principles that are giving you that impression. So I do bring that a lot into my foundation courses.
It's a joy to talk to you, Susan. Thank you so much. Yeah. This has been brilliant.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye. Very nice to talk to you too. You have a good day.
Okay.
You too.
Bye.
Susan, see you at 6, Susan. See you at 6.
See you soon. Bye.